Guys, this is like the eighth time I've tried to shoot this video. I don't know really how to address this because what I'm feeling tonight is so many mixed emotions, so many different ways to look at and address what transpired tonight in Seattle sports, but I have to make a video about it. So this will be the last take. Hopefully I manage to get out something that makes sense and is reasonable, and we can just go from there, because if I don't make a video about tonight, then what am I doing as a Seattle sports fan? Why am I even here? So, for those of you who don't know, I'm a Mariners fan, Seattle Mariners fan, as well as a Seahawks fan. Don't talk about the Mariners as much because, quite frankly, there's not a lot to talk about, especially recently. The last 18 years have been it's been tough. We've been bad a lot. We've been terrible a couple times. We've been above average a couple times. There have been a few seasons that were really worth watching and nice and fun. And I got a kick out of following baseball those handful of years, but on the whole, it's just been bad. And over the last 18 years, you can't say any Mariners team has been good. So it's been tough. And tonight, we're not going to talk about the fact that it was tough. We're going to talk about one of the reasons why it was fun. Because as bad as the last 18 years have been, the last 15, we've had at least one really obvious bright spot to look forward to. And I'm talking, of course, about Felix Hernandez. Tonight, he pitched what is almost certainly like 99.9% his final game as a Mariner. He probably won't pitch again in the major leagues given his performance recently. So it was probably his final start of his career. So it's so hard to talk about a career like Felix's because he was obviously great. He's obviously one of the best players in franchise history. Collectively, he's probably the greatest pitcher in franchise history. And there's just so much stuff about him that is amazing, and I'm so glad that he came through my life. I'm so glad that, he was pitching every fifth game for so long for this team. You can look at the career accomplishments: 170 wins on a team that never gave him run support, 3.42 ERA, even with the last 3 years being bad, 25 complete games, 2,500 strikeouts, Cy Young, 7-time All-Star, and just really, really a special player. And I probably associate him with the Mariners more than any player except for Ichiro, because I started watching in '96. I kind of got into the Griffey party halfway through. The Alex Rodriguez thing didn't go exactly where we wanted it to go. And, Randy Johnson had his best years for other teams. So to me, Felix is kind of the consummate Mariner. Him and probably Edgar, I guess. But Felix has been there my whole life. It feels like my whole super into sports life. And it's just too bad that we can't have a full appreciation for how good he was because the team wasn't able to get to where they wanted to go. So, Hernandez, I remember he came up from the minors in 2005, pitched a few games at the end of a really bad season, I think. So we all got a taste of what he could be, what he could do, how he could possibly be the foundational piece of a rotation that would one day be good enough for the playoffs, be good enough to make a World Series run. Just a 19-year-old kid with a lot of power and no control. I remember the next couple years, Eric Bedard above anybody else that I can remember. And Eric Bedard was a terrible Mariner, but he really helped Felix develop his game and develop a real feel for throwing pitches. And, without Bedard, I do wonder if Felix would have been just another highly touted bust of a prospect. It's easy to imagine, right? I mean, I remember those first couple seasons. He had control issues. His second year, his first full year in the majors, he was a below average pitcher. got it under control, rounded into shape, and by 2009, he had one of the best years by any pitcher in Mariners history, 2.49 ERA, 19 wins, just really masterful, almost won the Cy Young, first All-Star appearance, and we knew we had an ace on our hands. And then, of course, you had the next year, the Cy Young Award. Somehow he won the Cy Young on a team that could only deliver him 13 wins, 13 and 12, guys. I mean, that doesn't get talked about enough. I know we talk about it, but 2010 Felix, 2.27 ERA, best in the league, 34 starts, 6 complete games, and we could only get him a 13 and 12 record. So if anything in the world can sum up the Felix Hernandez experience, it would probably be that. He was the best pitcher on the planet for one season, and he had a 13 and 12 record. So, like I said, 7-time All-Star. He later in his career he lost a bit of his power, so he picked up on it in control and still maintained his effectiveness. And we just could never give him the support that he needed and deserved. He turned in a 2.14 ERA season on 34 starts in 2014, which could easily be his best season. He had a 18-win season in 2015, probably his last great season. He had the perfect game, the only perfect game in Mariners history. One of the best moments in Seattle sports history. Fittingly, he won the game 1-0. Just one last. Even in his greatest moment, we can barely give him any run support. And the last few years they were tough. I can't lie. Every week, every 5 games, we'd watch him go out there, hope we'd see something great. Sometimes we'd get the great Felix, but quite often he'd have control issues. He wouldn't be able to overpower batters anymore. And some days he would just get shelled. And it was tough to see. The last 2 years in particular, he's been really bad, quite frankly. And he's, if you're being straight honest, the last 2 years he's helped us lose more than he's helped us win. But it doesn't take away from how amazing he was for a really long time. And I know we all hope that he could have a Greg Maddux-like second half of his career where he just became a control artist and struck people out and got people out and managed the game without power pitches, but it didn't happen. His career is almost certainly over, and it just bums me out that we could never even make the playoffs with Felix. Felix never got to pitch in a playoff game. And even if it had just been one playoff game, I know that the Seattle Mariners fans would have gotten out to that stadium, sold it out, gone crazy. The King's Court would have come to life every time he had a 2-strike count. And I would have loved to have given him that opportunity. And it just makes me sad. I mean, at least Ichiro made the playoffs one time. He made the ALCS with us once. Griffey got us to the ALCS once, and he made a couple other pushes in the playoffs. And we got to see those guys on the biggest stage. Felix never even got to pitch in a playoff game, but I'm going to think about how great he was, how dominant that he was for pretty much a 7-season stretch, where he was maybe over that 7-season stretch, maybe the best overall pitcher in the game. I know I'm all over the place in this video, guys, but it's such a complicated legacy to try to untangle because you're going to look at his career record and say, oh, he only won 56% of his decisions. The last 3 years, he's been below average to bad. He never pitched in a playoff game. I know how people are going to analyze him in the future, but I'll just remember a great player who deserved better than he got from us. And I'm going to remember a player who he gave his whole career to a Seattle Mariners team that could never give him the support that he deserved. And tonight was the final nail in the coffin of that. And once again tonight, I mean, I watched part of the game. He pitched okay. Probably one of his best games this season, to be perfectly honest. And 1 run. I think the game's still going on. He's not going to get the win. Probably going to take the loss, but that kind of sums up his career perfectly. So maybe it's appropriate that his career ends in a game where the Mariners can only give him 1 run of support. Summed up every other year pretty much. All right, sad day, but I'm gonna remember the good times. Felix Hernandez, in an era of Mariners baseball that was pretty much irrelevant, he was relevant, and I appreciate it. Uh, all right, I'm gonna get out of here. I'm gonna make some videos tomorrow about the football games, but tonight we say long live the king. Peace.